Hey guys, good morning. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We're here though, we're ready to go. We've got a Hydrangea Pruning Masterclass. One of my favorite topics because if you know me at all, you know I love hydrangeas. And we are talking about 5 different species today of hydrangea, and I'm super excited about this. One of my favorite things to do is prune over the wintertime or not to prune over the wintertime. One of the biggest questions we get out here all the time is, when do I prune my hydrangeas and how do I do it? And I get it. There's 5 different species that we sell, our best sellers anyway. And there are different ways to prune them based on their specific species, okay? So first things first, I wanted to get started and I wanted us to get to know our hydrangeas first. That is the most crucial step in this whole process, is knowing which hydrangea you actually have. So that tells me how to help you prune it or not prune it, okay? So I decided to start today by teaching y'all some botanical names. Ooh, scary, huh? It's 5 different species, y'all. It's Latin. Yes, it's kind of weird, but it's not hard. And I wanted to show y'all one of my favorite parts of horticulture, and that is knowing the roots, the suffixes of and prefixes of different species. And I think that's cool because in Latin, those words mean something to us. So like I said, bear with me here. I'm going to teach you the 5 different species. You're going to learn them, okay? It's going to be good for you, I promise. All right, so just right off the rip, let's talk about hydrangea. Let's just say that word, and there's 2 different parts of that word. Hydrangea in the name itself is 2 different parts of the word, okay? So hydra, what does hydra mean? Water, okay? And then angos stands for jar. A water jar.
Oh, sorry. I saw a star.
Star. It's jar. Like a pouring of a jar.
Star.
And I think what this means is, in my brain anyway, is that a water jar obviously holds water. Well, hydrangea blooms, almost all of them, really hold water a lot whenever it rains, okay? So that's what hydrangea actually means. And hydrangea is the genus of all 5 of these species, okay? So every single one of them. Hydrangea is the first part of that. So hydrangea, water jar, that's the start of it. Okay, so the next one I'm going to talk about, which is one of the biggest growing, this is the Oakleaf Hydrangea, okay? So Oakleaf, let's think about this. The species name of this Oakleaf plant is quercifolia. So where does that come from? Quercus is the genus of oak trees. Okay, interesting. So, and folia refers to foliage, as you see on the screen. So oak-like foliage. Isn't that cool? Quercifolia. So you can remember the Oakleaf Hydrangea, and there it is. Oakleaf Hydrangea is one of the biggest growing hydrangeas that we sell. Very large, blooms first, it's one of the first bloomers of all the hydrangeas. Starts off pure white, and then it fades to this pinkish reddish color. It also has some of the best fall color of all the hydrangeas we're going to be talking about as well. So there you go. That's your Oakleaf Hydrangea Quercifolia. Moving on to the next one is the Hydrangea serrata. Okay, so what does serrata mean? What does that make you think of? Serrated. The leaves are very, very serrated, more so than all of the rest of them, and that's what serrata means. And there it goes. So there it is. We typically call Hydrangea serrata the Lacecap style bloomers. It's also called a mountain hydrangea a lot of times, but we typically call them lace caps, and you can see why. Those blooms are nowhere near like that perfect round that you're thinking of. They're much more open, they're kind of flattened, they have bigger individual petals, and they've got their reproductive parts on the inside of kind of that flower cluster. Probably the least popular of the hydrangeas that we sell, but I think it's one of the coolest. It's one of the ones you really don't see all that often, but whenever you do see them in someone's bed, you're like, huh, that's very interesting, very pretty. They can be blue or pink depending on the pH of your soil. So there you go. That is Hydrangea serrata, serrated foliage. All right, next. This is probably, I would say, still the most popular hydrangea that we sell, I would say, and this is Hydrangea macrophylla. Okay, this is the ones you're thinking of that are the typical, very round blooms that are either blue or pink. It's that classic hydrangea that you think about, and it's still, like I said, it is probably the best-selling hydrangea that we sell. Now, like we have up on the screen here, macrophylla. Macro meaning big, and phylla referring to the leaf. So this is the bigleaf hydrangea, and it's a beautiful plant. It's not all that large. It's probably the most, I would say, possibly the most annoying of the hydrangeas around here in Middle Tennessee, because we typically suffer from late frosts and freezes, And as you all know, this can affect our foliage, and I will go on about that here in a minute because they do want to leaf out in the spring a little bit, and then we get that late frost or freeze, wax back that foliage, and then you don't see the blooms for that season. So these first three that I talked about, I'm going to put up another thing here in a second that I made, but these first three are the ones that bloom off of old wood, okay? These are the ones that I'm going to talk about here in a minute that we're not going to do as much pruning on over the wintertime. That's why I was saying knowing which one you have is going to tell you which one to prune. So we'll get into that in a minute. So let's move on to the new wood bloomers. Two very popular ones as well. The first being our like limelight style Panicle Hydrangeas. Okay, so the botanical name of this is Hydrangea Paniculata. Okay, so paniculata, what does this mean? It refers to the panicle, which is paniculata can be used in a bunch of different species of other plants. Probably our second most popular, I would say, hydrangea that we sell. This is a full sun hydrangea. You probably are most commonly, you probably most commonly know limelight hydrangea. There's a lot of different varieties and cultivars now of the panicle style hydrangeas, but limelight's kind of that one you think about the most. And like I said, panicle refers to a pyramidal, loosely branched flower cluster. Isn't that interesting? And nowadays, most of those panicle style blooms are not really loosely branched anymore. They're hybridizing and they're trying to make these things much tighter. So nowadays, new cultivars, like I said, are a much tighter bloom. There you go. That's limelight right there. And as you see, it starts off this greenish color, and then it goes to a pure white, and then fading back to a pinkish color like most of them do. This plant gets very large as well, and it's the one that can handle the most sun by far. Okay, so like I said, panicle, a pyramidal, loosely branched flower cluster, and then the ATA at the end is just used to form a noun in Latin, so that's why they throw that in there. But what you need to know is a panicle style bloom. Typically on that, it's a pyramidal shape. And it's an excellent plant. It really is. But it's a growing machine, and this is one that is certainly going to need to be pruned, and this is actually the time to do it. So we'll get into that here in a minute. And last but not least, my favorite of the hydrangeas, I've got to say, is the Annabelle type hydrangeas. You're probably familiar with this. If you grow Annabelles, you know you love them. There's a new variety out there called Incredible, which is the one that I've got at my house. It gets a little bit bigger, but these are categorized as, it's not a full sun plant, but it can handle some sun. It's more of that semi-shade environment. But it's the one that's got these pure white, perfect round blooms, okay? And they set atop of green foliage. And it's just an excellent little plant. We got a picture of it coming up here in a minute. Let's get to it. There we go. Okay. So the species of this are the genus Hydrangea and then the species arborescens. So arbor, meaning tree-like. Well, essence, arbor meaning tree, essence meaning like. So it's a tree-like. Why is it tree-like? No clue. I thought about this last night for like 30, 45 minutes. Like, why would that be tree-like? Don't know why. Arborescens is also used in the plant world elsewhere. But for some reason, back in the day, some old Latin dude decided that this plant was tree-like. I don't know why. Maybe it's the blooms that are big. I don't really know. But arborescens means tree-like. Also, another one that blooms from new wood. So the old wood doesn't matter so much. We're going to get into that in a minute. But there you go. So those are the specific species of what I will be talking about today. So knowing your hydrangea is the first key, like I said, to know how to prune it. So if you can remember those botanical names, then this will be very helpful because I made a little thing yesterday. It's on a whiteboard. I've got it right here. Can we go full screen, Tyler? Let's bring it
Okay.
up. I'm excited about this. Can you even see it good? Look, I did a thing. How do I get? Okay, here we go. Here we go. Look, hydrangeas at the top. Quercifolia, serrata, macrophylla. They bloom on old wood, so we don't prune. So with quercifolia, quit. With serrata, stop. And with macrophylla, mow. Mow. I know mow doesn't make sense at all, but it rhymes with no. So no, don't prune, people. Not over the wintertime anyway. Quercifolia is going to have a little asterisk above it because I'm going to get to that in a minute. You can prune that at another time, but not quite yet. So anyway, over the wintertime, please, y'all, do not prune any of these. I've got plants in the studio that I am going to prune, but I'm going to show you what I mean by prune, and it's a little bit different with these top 3, okay? So quit, stop, mow, mow. All right, next. The ones you do prune over the wintertime. How can I figure this? I don't know. There we go. Okay. The paniculata and the arborescens are the ones you're going to prune. So what I say is prune away, baby. It is time, okay? Over the wintertime, it is time. All of these hydrangeas are dormant right now. They all lose their leaves over the wintertime. So you can really see what you're going to be pruning on. And I will get in and prune those for you today. Just give me a minute on that. But like I said, prune away. It is time. New wood bloomer. So it doesn't really matter how you do it, but I'm going to show you some tips and tricks. Okay. I hope y'all like this. I came up with it. Mo's really stupid, but it rhymes with no. So don't do that. All right. Enough of that. Okay. So now it's time to actually do this thing, y'all. Let's start pruning or not pruning. All right, so the first one I talked about was the quercifolia. I'm going to speak in species, so I hope y'all wrote that down. All right, not going common names anymore. We out here talking. This is a master class, okay? I'm just playing. I'll still talking, but in common names for a minute. But I'm going to try to go in species so y'all remember. Quercifolia, oak leaf hydrangea, okay? Quercus like foliage. Here we go. This is a big one. All right. Okay. So look at this guy. I'm spinning around. It doesn't have a ton of branching structure, but what I noticed is that a lot of our oak leaf hydrangeas in our greenhouse right now, we have all of our plants really tucked away in the greenhouse for the wintertime. So a lot of those plants didn't lose their leaves. They still had leaves. So I wanted to choose one that didn't have leaves on it. So I got this old 7-gallon. This one's called Ruby Slippers is the cultivar name. And like I said earlier, we're not going to do much pruning on an oak leaf hydrangea. Now, this is where I said the asterisk was coming in. Oak leaf hydrangea gets big and it gets unruly. And a lot of people think it should be put in smaller spots or whatever. And like they realize quickly that it gets very large. Okay. So whenever we go to prune an oak leaf hydrangea, we are really in the wintertime, and this goes with the other two I'm going to talk about as well. We're really just going to clean it up. Okay. We're just going to find things that we may not like and just give it a snip or two. So like one thing I see right off the rip, I brought this in, is it got a broken twig. Like it just broke off. I didn't even have to cut it. So things like that we just take. What I also see is right in the interior of the plant, which is really going to be hard to see, but like these two stems right here. Look, see how they're crossing? We really don't want crossing all that much, especially on the interior of the plant. So I'm going to find which one I like better, and I'm going to take the other one. Okay, so we got these two limbs that are, like I said, they're crossing a little bit. You can see them going across each other. So I'm just looking at it. And really, honestly, I don't really like either of those stems because they're both growing really towards the interior of the plant. So I'm just going to go in there and take the whole stem, both of those, get them out of there. And I am opening that up so you can see, let's see, nice open branching structure. And I'm going to leave all the top growth because all the flower buds are going to be produced on those stems that are left over the wintertime. So not going to do any tip pruning on that. But I will say the time to actually prune an oak leaf hydrangea is immediately after it blooms, okay? So I know a lot of you like to keep those old blooms up. They look pretty good. To me, they're not all that great. They just kind of go, like I said, pure white. They fade to a reddish color, and then they go to a tan color, and they persist that way and will really through winter if you leave them up. If you need to cut your oak leaf hydrangea because it is so big, let it bloom next spring, let it finish off red, and then let it go that tan color, and then give it a whack. I mean, take it back, y'all. It's not going to hurt it. What it's going to do is get it back in check. It's going to make a bushier habit plant, and it's going to produce those flower buds for the next year's growth. So you don't have to worry about pruning it over the wintertime at all. You do your pruning with these right after it blooms. Okay, that's the rule of thumb with oak leaf hydrangea. And like I said, don't worry too much about hurting it or anything. Oak leaves, if you've grown them, you know they are growing machines. Okay, so they will get back big for you. Give them a good cut. Just go to a spot you want to take them down to and then prune all those sticks the same way, uniform and open in the center with just nice airflow around all the sticks. You'll have a much better looking plant, but we're not going to do this over the wintertime. Wait till after it blooms, okay? Okay, there's oak leaf. All right, the next I talked about was the serrata. Okay, this is the Lacecap style bloom. Like I said, probably the least popular of the ones we sell, not near as showy as the other ones, but this one certainly blooms from these old sticks on buds that are tucked in and dormant right now. But if you were to take this plant to the dirt and you just prune every single bit of it off because you can't stand looking at the sticks, what you're going to see is a big green bushy plant next year and no blooms around it. And what is the point of a green bushy hydrangea with no blooms? A hydrangea that doesn't bloom is the most annoying thing on the planet, okay? So we don't want that. Leave these sticks up. Do not touch them. Now, this one actually was pre-pruned a little bit, and it's got an excellent shape. This is really what we want to see. Just this good, open, wide habit, stems going out and then curving up a little bit. Nothing crossing too bad. -1 I've got right here. Let me just make a little snip on that because it's wanting to kind of go back behind that one. And I've got a lot of sticks in here to play with, so taking 1 or 2 of them is not going to hurt anything. But this guy right here is, I know it's hard to see because they're just sticks, but it's going where I don't really want it to. So let's just take that whole stick, prune it right out of there, and then that opens it up just a little bit where we don't have a lot of crossing going on. I do have a broken limb right down here at the bottom. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Snip it clean, and then we've got some just dead sticks that are kind of off color that are just down below at the bottom. These guys broken, not really needed. They probably won't even produce buds. They don't even look like they have buds on them. And then some of these small ones just to keep it clean. And I just like to do it, to be honest with you. There's an old leaf in there. Do know, too, that clean up all those old leaves that are at the base of the plant underneath it. Like those old leaves that are just sitting there are just going to be a spot to where they could collect some sort of fungi that might travel through the plant. Like you just don't want to keep old leaves beneath the plant. It's just not good horticultural practice, really, for any plant. So, honestly, for me, it's just a leaf blower that I'll get out there and just blow all those leaves, get them out from underneath it, and then get it back to clean, just like this one. So with the serrata, like I said, stop. Do not prune these tips. All of these buds that I see working down this whole stem are all viable for next year, and those are going to produce your flower buds, okay? So this is actually a really good-looking, open and airy serrata Lacecap Hydrangea. So there you go. All right. Next up, our best seller still is the macrophylla hydrangea, the big leaf hydrangea. I brought in a blue enchantress today, okay? This is a newer cultivar-ish from Monrovia who came out with it. And the one you're probably thinking of and you all know the most is going to be that Endless Summer collection, those ones that come in that nice, pretty little blue pot. And that's still, like I said, probably our best seller. These are the ones that turn either blue or pink, depending on the pH of your soil, and they're nice, round blooms. The most annoying of the hydrangeas, like I had said earlier, because they're somewhat inconsistent with if they're going to bloom or not, because they do bloom off those sticks that we have to leave up, okay? But why I chose this one, first off, shout out Ben Tress. He's the one that showed me this plant, and I liked it. I liked the look of it, but there's a lot going on, okay? Look how many sticks. I mean, you can't even barely see through that. They can't even barely see me because there's so many sticks in this thing, and we don't need them all. And what I can see, and I hope y'all can see a little bit, is that these stems on blue enchantress are very appealing to me personally because they're black. They got black stems with green foliage, and then typically blue blooms. So it's really an attractive plant. I just love odd things about plants, and black stems is pretty rare. So that's just cool. But what I also see is I do see a lot of black in the stems. So I see that, but then I also see a lot of not black, a lot of off-colored sticks that literally just can break away. So those are the ones, this is, like I said, we're not going to do any tip pruning on any of these, but we do need to give this guy a cleanup, okay? It has just got too much in there. I want to open it up, make it more airy. We got old leaves that are still persisting in there, and a lot of sticks, they just aren't needed. So let's start kind of with the interior of this plant and find some sticks that just aren't very productive. Like this one, yeah, see how it's off color? It's got, it does have some black, and there's a little bud right there that will crack if I were to leave it. There's a little bud right there and a little bud right there. But it's all like tucked into the rest of it, of this really nice stem that's going to produce multiple buds. So I really just don't like the look of that. Plus this stem is off color. I can tell it's older. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Just don't like it. Just open it up. And whenever you open stuff up and you start really looking, it opens you up to more things that you can see. Like this whole stick that's just in there. You know, we don't need that. These back here, look, this stick has got a lot of brown and dead in it. It does have prominent buds over here, but it's not all that prominent. It's not going to produce just a whole show. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of it. Take it out of there. Off-colored sticks. There's another one. Old leaves we just take as we go. There's a stick off in there that is just doesn't even have a bud on it. Get that out of there. This stick, look, all this kind of brownish, deadish, and then we got this one bud poking out from the top on the side there. But I don't like the whole stick. It's just not needed. It's just unproductive. Get rid of that. Got some up high here. This is just very selective pruning of taking main canes and sticks that are just not needed, you know. There's one. This whole stem very off color. This one very off color. These to the side here coming out. Look, stick, no buds whatsoever. Take it. Old pruning cut, dead stick, dead stick. As you see, y'all, I'm just giving it a cleanup. Not taking anything from the tips at all. Sticks down here. And that one's not great. Not great. Opening up the center at least a little bit. And that whole stick just doesn't look good. This one right in the middle. One bud right atop the whole kind of brownish stick. Let's just take it. I really like to see those black stems, so as many of those as I can see, better than the off-colored tan ones. Just some more little cleanup of little twiggies. Don't like them. Old leaves. I'm making a mess in here. Can't see it. All right. Getting pretty good. Man, that whole stick doesn't have anything on it. It's right in the middle of the shrub where I really want airflow. Get it out. Pretty good buds there. Just some more cleanup. I could probably go all day with this thing. Not going to. Old leaves. All right. So we're pretty well open now. There's still some more little cleanup I could do. Like I said, take your time on this. Just have fun with it. Once you make pruning cuts, you notice new pruning cuts you have to make. So just keep on going. But do not leave or do not cut anything from the top down that has buds on it, okay? That's what's going to bloom. Or not bloom. That's what I was saying. Like in the spring, if they all flush out their leaves and they start growing and then we have a late frost or freeze and you forget to cover or whatever, or it's just too cold and it damages all of that old stuff, then you just don't get a bloom that year. Highly annoying, like I said, but still worth growing because they're when they do bloom, beautiful. Some of the best. All right. A few more steps on the macrophylla. There you go. Hope y'all are remembering these. And I'm going to call that good enough, at least for this webinar. And one more big stick with just nothing on it. Another one over here.
So you removed about, what, half the mass, almost?
I don't know that I'd say half, but at least, I don't know. Yeah, maybe half of the mass, at least of just off-colored sticks that just are non-productive. And you can just see, based on the color of the stems, a real bad crossing branch there. I'm going to go ahead and take that. Whew, starting to sweat. All right, one more. Notice my interior is nice and open. You know, it doesn't look like picture perfect or anything, but it doesn't have to. You got to keep the sticks up. More sticks, more buds, more blooms, more better. So let's leave a lot of those sticks. I'm going to call this done. All my buds look good at the tips. And we'll see. We'll see what the spring brings. So there you go. That's all the pruning we're going to do on those 3 species that I talked about. We're not going to do any more than that besides just a basic cleanup of your shrub. And like I said, have fun with it. It's fun to get out there and do that. All right. Moving on to the ones that we can prune. Okay, let's move. What did I do? Oh, the panicle. Okay, give me a second. This is a big boy. Oh my God. Hi. Oh, hi. Hello. Loud and proud, this feller. Golly, it's already been pruned. Actually, a little bit, but I was going to show you how much more you could prune. Okay, so with both of these new wood bloomers, let's go. I'm going to go ahead and right off the rip tell you, you could cut this to the dirt. I mean, take your chainsaw and just take it to the ground. An established plant is not going to be affected by this practice at all. Listen, I know customers that cannot stand to see dead-looking sticks over the wintertime. They absolutely cannot stand to see that. It bugs them. So what do? They go out and they clear cut it to the ground every single year. What happens is you get sucker sprouts that come up from the root system and produce their own flower buds and consistently bloom every single year without a problem. These are the easy guys. These are the ones that are really just tried and true. You can't barely hurt them. So for me, I still like to prune. I don't necessarily want to take this to the dirt because I really like the wood, the chunky wood that I've got in here. If y'all know panicle style hydrangeas at all, you know that they can get very large. They get very large quickly. They have very big blooms. They hold a lot of water and they want to flop on you a little bit. We want to try to avoid that as much as we can. And the way that you can really achieve that is by keeping some of these really, chunky sticks in here to kind of help hold up those blooms anyway. So with this guy, like I said, I just like to get it uniform. First off, we do our cleanup. We always do our cleanup first, and that's these tiny little twigs that are just in there, just not really doing anything. We want to keep the biggest, chunkiest. I'm going to stand up for this one, I think. Get this up here. All right. Dead sticks that are in there, little tiny twigs. This is our first just initial cleanup. Little twig. It's not too bad. Is it close enough, Tyler? All right. Little twigs. Y'all can figure that out whenever you get in there and start doing it. But you kind of see my process is just little bitty things that are just holding on. I don't really want. I want to get broken stem. Let's just take that for now. And this is actually pruned pretty well. I think I would just shorten it. So what you can do, or what you all can see, is that we've made our pruning cuts. This is last year's pruning cut. That's like right in there. And then we had these two main stems that came off of that. Take that stick while I'm thinking about it. So what you can do, like I said, you can prune it this way. And you can leave it alone and let it just have all these sticks. Or you can shorten a little bit. I like to shorten back to the main stem. Okay, so like right off in here. So what you see, like I said, is this stem that came up from it and then this stem that came up from those cuts from last year. So what you can do is go to this bud, all right? There's a bud right there. You can see the buds. You know what they are. They're technically called nodes, and they work all the way up the stem. So you don't need all of those. Sometimes if you have too many of those, what you get is just a really stemmy plant with a lot of blooms that just, they really flop. They don't want to stay up on you. So I go down and I take it above. This is always the rule of thumb. You take it above the bud you want to keep and the one you want to leaf out in the spring. So I want to keep this bud right here. So I'm going to cut an angled cut right above it. Okay, get it down to that. On the other side, I'm going to do a similar thing at the similar spot. All buds are not at the same spot on every stem, so it's not going to be like perfect. But that's kind of how I go about it. Go to the bud that I want to keep and then cut right above it. Same with this bud I want to keep right above it. And just I keep doing that uniformly around the whole plant on buds that are pretty close to the chunky stem that I really want to keep to hold up my flowers for next season. So bud I want to keep, cut. And I just spin it and keep working around all the buds I want to keep. Working on the height of it too. I'm just shortening as I go, all uniform around the whole plant. That whole stem's going really towards the interior of the plant. Don't really want that. I want to keep it nice and open if I can. Still working ourselves around. Remember, above the bud you want to keep. And then work on twigs as you spin it around. Get those little bitty guys out of there. They're non-productive, not going to be helpful. That whole little twig there I don't really like. Just take that. That's really coming out. I'm going to take that whole thing. Little twig. Bud, I want to keep. Twig, unproductive. Twig, unproductive. Big tall guy. All right. So there we go. We've worked on the height. We've got it uniform. And I've got it to where it's the buds I want to keep are I've cut right above them, so I know that they'll stay there. And then I got a few more little twigs. Just kind of want to clean up. But look how sturdy and stalky we have it now. Nice and down to really good wood. And then we're going to get a nice, we lessened some of our blooms, but that's honestly a good thing a lot of times. You don't need near as many as you think you do. Every one of these sticks are going to make flower buds and bloom, so don't worry about that. But we just gave it a nice little, trim, a little just clean up, if you will, but also a somewhat heavy prune. And like I said, you can cut it to the dirt if you want to. But I like to keep these nice chunky stems. So that is Paniculata, the Panicle style hydrangea. Limelight, like I said, most commonly used. Really, really good plant, really dependable plant, extremely hardy. So growing, there's a lot of new cultivars out there you ought to check out as well that are even better than what Limelight is. So we stock all of those out here. Come out and see us. We'll talk to you about the new cultivars. There we go. Good looking Limelight all trimmed up. All right. Last but not least, like I said, my favorite hydrangeas, pure, crisp, white round blooms. Oh, put them behind boxwoods. It's just this clean, green, fantastic look that I think everybody should have. This is straight up Annabelle, regular old, just Annabelle hydrangea, just Hydrangea arborescens, tree-like. Don't know why it's tree-like, but whatever. Arborescens hydrangea. Okay, so we're going to prune this exactly pretty much the same way as I just did that one over there. And this one, or the panicle over there, I like to leave sticks up. It is very common. This is a little bit more twiggy and stemmy, so a lot of people really do clear cut these to the ground. Nothing wrong with that practice at all. Totally fine for you to do that. I don't necessarily like to do that. I like to see both. With my incredible hydrangeas, I like to see both. So I trim my stems down all uniform like I just did with the panicle back to where they are. So what I get is leaf growth from those stems, but then also I get growth from sucker sprouts down below, and it makes for a really full shrub, and it just looks really nice. Don't just plant one Annabelle. You got to plant 3s and 5s, 7s, like put them in mass. That's when they really look good, and plant them pretty close together. And you'll get all this shrub from the sticks and all the sucker growth all grows together and all blooms on every single one of those stems. So do it that way. That's the way I like to do it. But with this guy, not much to do really besides just our regular cleanup. And honestly, it's already been trimmed for me a little bit, so we're not really doing much. Just kind of also, once again, take it to the bud you want to keep and prune right above that. Any hollow wood, like you can see hydrangea, if you know it all, like there's some of their stems can get hollow. Let's just go ahead and take those, remove it. Some of these sticks are old pruning cuts that are not going to come back out. This stick is just wonky. Don't like it. It's coming out in a weird way. Just going to take it right to the dirt. And just try to keep it open. Things that are growing on top of each other, we don't necessarily have to keep. But like I said, this is really based on you and your preference on what you want it to look like. If you hate these sticks, y'all cut it to the dirt. I'm telling you, it's fine. It's going to bloom next year. So, like I said, not much more to do. A little bit of cleanup. This one's already been shortened for me. I'm going to shorten this a little more just to get it back uniform, and that's just because of me and my brain just wanting to keep it all at the same level so it cracks out in the spring at the same level. You can even see we've had some of these in our greenhouse, and you can see they're already wanting to kind of leaf out a little bit, which is funny. So it's coming from that bud right there. So So we're going to leave that. Why not? This stick's getting too tall. Don't like it. We'll take it back uniform, back uniform. That stick looks unproductive. There's some unproductive sticks in the middle as well. You know, this hydrangea doesn't have too many like pest or pathogen issues, but it's just still always good practice. Try to keep that interior as open as you can. So let airflow through the middle or center of the plant. Like I said, just good horticultural practice with most of the plants you're going to be pruning. There's some more. There's nasty leaves in there. We can get that out later.
While Austin is pruning, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask those at this time.
Yes, please ask questions if you have them, because I'm getting to be where I'm almost done pruning this thing. I have mine at the house, my Incredibles, where I probably kept. I took a lot of them from the base just to kind of open it up, but I probably, with each plant, I probably have about, I'd say 12 to 15 sticks that are up and looking good. I've been growing them for years, so they're pretty chunky stems. Getting on some of them. I took some of the oldest stems. They just are starting to look a little old. And other than that, I kept the nice, fresh, straight-looking sticks at a nice vase shape. That's how I grow mine at about, 2 foot off the ground. And like I said, I'm going to get crackage from those stems and also sucker sprouts from the ground. It's going to be beautiful this year. So that's how you do that one. This one is Hydrangea arborescens, our Annabelle type hydrangeas. Got some more kind of sticks in there. Didn't even mean to cut that, but it happened. What does it matter? It's going to rebloom anyway off new wood, so it's okay if you make a wrong cut. I just don't like this stem down here. It's just annoying me. Growing in a funky way. All the rest of them are looking pretty good. I don't really like that. Touching those. This one's kind of touching. So just opening it up a little bit more on the middle especially. All right. So that's pretty good looking shrub. Okay. Yeah. Cute little bundle of sticks. All right, that one's done. That's how you prune it, but it's not exactly how you could prune it. Like I said, you can cut it to the dirt if you want to. But I do recommend shortening and at least, every year, at least over the wintertime, going in and getting these guys a cleanup. Even with the first 3 that I told you that we're not going to prune much on from the tops, we're still going to go in there and clean them up. Get some old, the wood that looks old and just non-productive, really. Just go ahead and take those and just give it a nice cleanup. That goes with all of them. But these last 2 are the ones that we can severely prune. The top 3 that I talked about, do not prune over the wintertime, okay? So there you go. There's the master class of hydrangeas. But like I said earlier, y'all, the biggest key is to know which hydrangea you're actually growing, and that will tell you how to prune it. Y'all
Question from Carol.
Hey, Carol, what's up?
What type of pruners are you using?
I am using my favorite type of pruner, actually. These, I didn't have to make huge cuts, okay, so I don't have to use really big pruners. But these are by far, what is this brand? Is this Corona? Yeah, these are Corona. I just call them snips. Not great for big, having to make big cuts or pruning or whatever, but they're actually much more sturdy than you think they are. By far, my favorite little snips. They're dependable. They work well. We sell them here. If I was going to have to make any bigger cuts, I was going to use these, which this is Bond brand, I believe. And they are just a very nice, sturdy hand pruners. I try to avoid pruners where this part is. You see how that's nice and open? And it's able to be cleaned very well, that spring. That's the way I go. I try to avoid those pruners that have that area like concealed, like to where you can't get, say, WD-40 in them very well, or they can get dirt lodged on the inside of that area. I try to avoid those. I find that, like I said, dirt and debris and stuff gets in there and they get to where they wear out quicker. So these springs are really open and airy, very easy to clean, very easy for dirt to pass through. So by far my 2 ways to go with pruners. Love them.
What about pathogens or anything or cleanliness do you?
It is good practice. Typically, like I said, with hydrangeas, we don't have too many crazy like pest or pathogen issues with them all that much. But it is good practice to, once you finish one of your shrubs, to dip your pruners in some alcohol before you move to the next shrub. That's just in case there were any like potential viral issues. It's that can be vectored that way through hand pruners. So you want to try to avoid that. But it's good practice really in all plants. So before you move on from one shrub to the next, let's go ahead and give those a dip in the alcohol.
And somewhat adjacently related, is this the time of year to prune crape myrtles?
Yes, actually it is. Crape myrtles are, once again, similar to hydrangeas that they bloom off new wood, so you don't have to, you can clear cut it to the ground. They'll still come up and bloom for you. They'll look more like a shrub if you do that. But yeah, crape myrtles, it's the time to do it when they're dormant.
And when is the best time to fertilize a hydrangea?
Hydrangea, typically in the before spring, get it dropped down before spring, before they start to emerge. That way you have your fertilizer already there and around. And then once those spring rains start happening and the hydrangea starts growing, that's when it'll start using that fertilizer well. So typically like late winter into spring, let's go ahead and get that dropped down so it can be used in the spring. All right, y'all. Hope you had fun. I had fun. Love hydrangeas. Get out there and prune them, or don't prune them. We'll see you next time.